All right. First off, thank you for the interview.
Right.
Let's start off with tell me a bit about yourself, what your function is within the company, and what your company does.
So I'm Frank, and we're now at Ember. Ember is, in its main part, car sharing company. So we have a fleet of cars that we use to provide our customers mobility. So whether, in the case you're a customer, you have a subscription at Ember, and you have a subscription for guaranteed mobility.
Okay.
But at the current moment, that's only within the regions that we are able to supply that, where we have customers. But we want to expand to the full of the Netherlands and globally. So, but if you have a subscription, you can use our app and say, okay, I want to go somewhere, and then the system says, okay, here you have a car, and you walk up to it, and it opens up, and you can drive with it. So basically, it's you need mobility. We hand you a car, and we do that in a kind of smart way, in a sense that it's not always the case that the car that's nearest to you is the car that's the best suitable for your drive. For example, if you want to go to the city center and it's only 5 kilometers away, but your neighbor has to go to Amsterdam, for example, he needs a car that's fully charged, and you can have any car that has at least a little bit of charge left. So those are all factors that we take into account, and we try also to give that, or we have to give our customers that guarantee, to be able to give the same kind of feeling and the same level of usability that you have when owning a car, but to a much lower price, a much lower cost, and even having increased flexibility, because you can leave cars, for example, in Amsterdam, and then take the train back.
Okay, cool.
So that's the thing that we do in the main of our, that's our core business.
Yeah.
But we, as Amber, have 2 more developments next to that. So one is the development of the autonomous systems that we are going to use to redistribute the cars, because as you can probably imagine, is at the moment that all the cars are, for example, taken to a specific location. For example, say there's a large soccer match and everybody's going to the stadium, then there are a lot of cars over there, and they need to be brought back to wherever they are needed. So you can do that with having more cars, but you can also distribute them better. And at the moment we do that ourselves, or by hiring cheap labor to drive the cars around, students. But as the fleet is growing, this is more and more needed to have an automation in that system, and that's also where we stand for, is to have everything that's possible. We automate that. So we automate the prediction of where the cars are going, the assigning of the cars, but also the transport. And then it can also transport itself to the garage if it needs new tires or any other kind of service.
Okay, cool.
So that's for the future. The first step is making sure that the cars can relocate themselves, redistribute. So that's why we're doing now the autonomous car development that we're doing in collaboration with a lot of partners, and we implement that on the BMW i3s that we're currently using in the platform. And that also brings us to the next development that we're doing, and that's the Amber 1, as you can see, for example, on that poster. This is just a mock-up, but we're working on our own vehicle, as we were looking for the perfect vehicle to put in a platform like this.
So now you're still building it on the BMWs?
Yeah.
And you're going to build a car from the ground up, totally autonomous?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not only because of the autonomy that we need a new car. Then it would be easy to integrate our technology in a car of somebody else.
Yeah.
Buy the main part and add some extra intelligence. But the thing is, we were looking for a car that's perfectly suited for such a system, and that's just not around, or it's not even being built right now, because all the cars that we have are built for a model where the cars are privately owned, or you lease it, but then it's owned by the leasing company. Okay. So it's a business case of you buy a car, and when it breaks down, you bring it back to the dealer. They make more profit as they fix your car, and after a couple of 100,000 kilometers, you throw it away because then it's old and you don't want it anymore, or you resell it, and then after somebody else does it away, or it gets wrecked in an accident or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So for the model where you have the shared car, where at the moment cars are standing still for 23 hours a day and only driving one, we want to go to 10 to 12 hours of driving time, and per vehicle that we have to optimize the use of that capital investment that you have. So that's also what we're trying to do with Amber to more efficiently use the means of mobility that we have. But that also lays a different use case to the car, which ends up in different requirements, and actually you need a different vehicle. And as the use case is so different, you actually need a new type of vehicle. And that's the reason why we said, okay, we can't find this. We're using BMW i3s right now to start off with, but we want to build our own car to dramatically lower the cost that's needed to drive this vehicle around, or to have the full management of the system, but also to make it more manageable, better usable, and increase the driving experience and the overall experience that our users have, to make us something that is fit for the new business model, instead of make something that's fit for the old business model and use it in a new business model. Yeah. So that's the three things that we do: the platform, the autonomous car, and the Amber One.
What's the expected first trial pilot Amber One?
The first trial pilot Amber 1 was to be scheduled for next year, the prototype. But currently we're focusing more and more development on the autonomous car development, because it's real necessity at the moment. And we still need some more funding to also get all of that done. So it's
more on the AI and machine learning itself, or not so much that yet?
What do you mean? Because that's more the machine learning is more on the autonomous part.
Yeah, exactly. You're focusing more on autonomous right now,
Yeah, we're focusing more on the autonomous development, which is mainly software. Yeah. But it's also we're the integrating partner in that. So we have to glue all the parts of the software together and create a full system architecture that works. Yeah. So it's also on a very much on a system-based level. Then we buy all the hardware and have to make some interconnects. But the main parts, which are mainly the sensors, we just buy that from stock. The actuators, which is the car, those are already in the BMW i3 that we're using. Okay. So we have to make the software that brings all that together, and we also take parts of that from everything that's available and then make that into a full system. So we're mainly busy on the system level and on some software development, mainly on the safety systems that are in there. And the more advanced algorithms, that's what we usually put at other people who are very good at making super advanced algorithms in computer vision or sensor fusion. Okay, that's not what you work together with them, but that's not what you're doing yourself. No, we don't have the expertise and the people to do that. And capabilities, yeah. So, on the car that's driving now, the i3? Or the BMW i3. Is it already driving autonomous or not yet? No, not yet. It does have some of the features. It can drive autonomously in a traffic jam, so it has the stop and go, I think they call it, and it can do automatic parking within a very tight set of requirements that you have to have a case where you can do automatic parking. And it can have some other features like the adaptive cruise control. It has semi-active lane assist that it can keep you on the lane a bit. And warning if you go out of the white line and stuff. Yeah. So, but only some features. So it has the actuators to control steering, brakes, and gas pedal. But it can do that itself. It can take the responsibility to do so. Yeah. It's only in the very confined cases where you're nearly standing still, so the stop and go and the parking, where it can really operate itself. And then still the user has to be in the car to interfere if something goes wrong. Yeah. So that's the actuation platform is okay-ish. It cannot be used at high speeds. It's not safe enough for that. But at slow speeds, it's okay. Then the sensors are also fine. They're still a bit expensive, but that's also fine. But the layer in the middle is where the effort needs to go. Yeah. Okay. So you're not that far as, like, say, a Tesla was a bit further on that, I think? No, I think Tesla's a bit further, and there are many people who are a lot further than we are. But the difference is how they're going to put it to use. Because everybody's aiming for that holy grail, which is, okay, I get into my car, I enter my destination, and it takes me wherever I want to go, and at the moment I can read the newspaper or do some work on my laptop. That's the utopia. Yeah, that's where we want to go. And at the moment, the technology is at different levels of automation, and we're still stuck at the driver assist level.
Yeah.
Which means that you can help the driver, but the driver should always be in control.
Yeah.
So that's also the reason why with the Teslas and all the other cars you can't let go
Yeah,
of the
they
steering
say
wheel
it's
because
still
you are
you-
still
yeah.
the one responsible.
Yeah.
And this is a very hard use case because if you, for example, you let go and gives you a warning, but whoever is going to make you take that responsibility back.
Yeah.
So it's from a legal standpoint, but also from a technical standpoint. You're putting the car in very different use cases at very high speeds, which is a very difficult one to solve.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is, okay, we don't want to do that right now because the technology is not far enough. And I believe that if at the moment it is, everybody's going to be at the same kind of level within 1 or 2 years. But
Yeah,
the technology to do that...
You think there's going to be like a first mover advantage, like there's going to be one certain party who has the AI that works the best in autonomous driving, like VHS became the leading disruptive technology? Or do you think more like mobile phones, there's iOS, there's Android, and there's different sort of systems communicating with each other?
It's like the big OEMs are the system integrators.
Yeah.
And I believe they cannot be the ones that excel in any of those components. You have, for example, Velodyne is very good at making lidars.
Yeah.
And at the moment, what they're now looking for is the solid state lidar, which has no moving parts, less chance to break down, which is much cheaper to make. And if somebody has that technology, then he has the first moving advantage and probably the patents to do that.
Yeah.
But that's definitely going to be a sensor company, not BMW or Mercedes or Tesla.
Okay.
And the same holds for the,
But also
the
on the
steering.
software side, do you think that's going to be the same?
Yeah, because they also make software to do that. And then you have, for example, NVIDIA is very good at doing the graphics processing platforms, but they also make algorithms for vision. So they make also that system. So that's what they're very good at. And so you have different parties all around that are very good at the very specific thing they do. And what the big OEMs do is also what we're doing, put everything together, and then mainly now also looking at, okay, all the gaps in that system we're going to fill in ourselves, and that takes a lot of time, and also there's a lot of time and effort going into testing. But at the moment that all these different, you can say, blocks in the system that you need to drive around autonomously are filled in correctly by some company that has a breakthrough in what is needed. And some components are already there. They're good enough. For example, ultrasonic sensors that you need for parking have been around for decades, and they're good enough and they're reliable enough. So that's not a problem. But for example, lidars or the radars are getting there.
Yeah.
So when all this comes together, then everybody has the possibility to do it, and then everybody's going to be there in 1 or 2 years. And then, of course, you have the first mover advantage, mainly on the marketing side, because you're in 1 or 2 years, everybody's going to be just as good. But I think it's very important to make sure that you have the right partnerships with the right kind of companies that will be the enablers of the technology.
Yeah, but because you see there's like a different approach in this regard. Like you do work with a lot of partnerships. Tesla used to do it a lot, but they're trying to internalize more and more and more.
Yeah, they're trying to buy some companies that did that.
Because I think like they had their initial startup they had with, I don't know what the sensor company was anymore, but they had a partnership with one of the companies, and then they stole more or less a lot of the information from the sensor company, and they kicked them out, and they started building their own sensors afterwards, right? Yeah. So you see between these partnerships some knowledge spillovers because of this sensitive data. You think this is going to be a problem on your side as well, or it's a totally different approach?
Yeah, I think we're not we have an approach of keeping that kind of stuff at the people that are good with it. Yeah. We don't want to do it ourselves. We rather license that in or buy a component from them. And Tesla's really trying to do everything themselves. Package, They build their own motors, they build their own batteries, they're trying to do everything themselves because they do not trust anyone. They're very, I think in my eyes, they're very paranoid. But I think it's better to leave it, and to come back to your topic of interest, it's better to leave it at the company that's doing that, because, for example, we're working with TNO, which is working with NXP, but also BMW, Volkswagen, and all the major OEMs they're selling their software to, and which then gives them data back, and so they have multiple means of improving that. They have multiple means of getting data something that would have taken us a lot of effort or money to get to that point. And so at the moment that everybody's using, for example, NVIDIA graphics processors, they have the means to improve that, and at a much faster rate than Tesla is, because they're never going to be as big as what everybody is using.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So as like you were already saying as well, like there's some open data that's being used as well, and there's also some private data that's being used by ride-hailing cars or whatever, and the collaboration actually sharing data and building on each other's data at the same time, right? So you give some data and you give some back at the same time, and together you're generating a lot more data than say a Tesla that's only doing its own thing and its own. And
it's the same thing with the Teslas. They had a very smart model. They put all the sensors in the car, and they have people driving around, and they have a machine learning algorithm that learns from everybody's driving, and with that way, itself, they generate the pathfinding algorithm and the sensor fusion themselves. And this is a very smart thing to do because they can gather a lot of data for that. We don't have that possibility to do that. But looking at a collaboration with all the other companies together, there is. And for example, the HD Maps is a good example with TomTom and Here doing that, which are both Dutch companies, by the way, which is. Yeah, I think here is now Chinese Path or something. Okay. But anyway, there are many OEMs are using their data. They but also sending data back. So they're using the map.
Is this open or not? Or is it
it's closed. It's closed.
Okay.
So that's a product that Here and TomTom sells. So you have to pay a lot for that. Exactly. But if you want that, you can also say, okay, I give my data back to the system. So that's what we're doing with Here. And so that at least that's a deal that we try to make with Here and TomTom, is to give our data back, and they can turn that into maps, and then give us the maps back. So the maps are more up to date, they are better. And if all the OEMs come to the same point, and all the companies that generate that data are feeding that back into the map data you feed back into the map maker, the LiDAR data you send back to the LiDAR supplier, and so everybody feeds back the data. The manufacturer of that can improve it, which also leads to improved performance at the side of the one that's feeding the data back. So you have a business model, and you have a vicious circle thing where it only becomes more positive.
Yeah, so actually opening up everything actually speeds up the process of innovation instead of this closed private innovation. Do you see, like, Tesla was one of the first that actually moved into this position, but do you see with all these collaborations at the backside, because like the big automotive car industry, they sort of catched on a bit later. But do you see that there's a big, they closed the gap really quickly with this sharing model, or not really? Not yet. Is their development pathing going a lot quicker than that? What, like, say, Tesla is going through right now?
I think they have a large problem doing that because it's a very new model to them, and they have large companies. I found that out over the last couple of years. Large companies can do innovation. So the thing they do is they buy a company that did that, and then try to either incorporate that fully or. Connect it with their company so that they're still like a private sector which has their own operating means to be able to keep on innovating, but also feed that back into the larger company. So that might be one way that they are very fast at picking this up, is that maybe they're lacking behind now, but some other company, or for example Amber, as we are, is going much faster, and then they say, okay, we want to just buy you and integrate that with our own system. So because they have the firing power, they have the money and the people to get something done at a very large scale, but that also means that at the same time it's impossible to do something very quickly and in a flexible way. So the collaboration there is key, I guess, and that also means that if they want to keep up with the newer companies, they have to keep doing that. And I think it is now being a good example that everybody is buying other companies and everybody is fusing stuff together. But the thing is that you can do it in the other way around, is just not buying the company, but having a partnership with them. And then if multiple OEMs have the partnership, then you probably all benefit from that. And it's less expensive than buying that company and integrating that. But nobody wants the other to have, they want a competitive edge. And if you integrate in a partnership where also all your other competitors are allowed, it's not a competitive edge. You become better from it, but all the rest of it does too. Yeah. And that's why I guess they keep buying other companies to also take the possibility out that other people do the same thing.
So it's still like trying to create your own competitive edge without actually feeding the market itself or the industry itself.
Yeah, and that's I guess holding innovation back
a bit. Yeah.
And the model of doing everything in collaboration would be more fruitful for innovation.
Okay.
But it's going there. I think more and more knowledge is going to the suppliers and the tier 1s and tier 2s. So also more knowledge and more innovation is shared because that is coming from the tier 1s and the tier 2s, where previously at the larger OEMs all the innovation was done in-house, and now it's mainly outsourced. Okay. If you see a new technology from Mercedes, was they had night vision cameras in the car, which was not Mercedes who invented that, it was Fleer who did that. Yeah. But they made a partnership with Fleer, and they said, okay, we knew that, and we marked it as we are the first one with that, and we invented this, blah, blah, blah. But it was actually another company who made the technology to do that, and they just integrate that and hook that up to the screen. Yeah. So it's not the innovation that comes from the big OEMs, it's just the integration.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think we covered quite a lot already. I think we actually covered most of it. Yeah, it was a good story.
It was also a bit of a rant against...
It was a rant, but it's good. It's good. It's good to see different perspectives, because I'm also going to talk with Uber and Waymo. Yeah. So I'm interested to hear how, like, Waymo might be somewhere in between. Uber is like... Totally
Uber is in the, okay, let's do everything ourselves.
Exactly. I think they're partnered up with Volvo only for some cars.
I don't know.
But I think that deal actually already failed as well at the same time. So,
I think there's something wrong with the Uber business.
It's a totally different approach. So it's quite interesting to look at as well at the same time. And
that makes it interesting to have. And I'd be happy to read your research afterwards because you're looking at it from different perspectives and.
A lot of it also has to do with where they see the market or the industry moving towards how's the future, because the future sort of it's really unclear. You actually in AI and that sort of stuff, there's already starting some regulation in Germany that's actually putting on rules for how AI has to abide by. Yeah. So it might actually be that people say, okay, we've got the AI that's the best, but if it's going to be regulated after a while, the advantage of moving as one of the first ones might actually be nullified at that same time.
Yeah, I was a couple of months ago. I was at the European Parliament in Brussels. Okay. To talk about within. It was also a bit of an. It was a formal session, but with a couple of speakers, of which I was one about autonomous cars and autonomous vehicles, drones, stuff like that, and also on the topic of AI. Should there be a legal framework with that to work in, and where is the liability going? And you see there on a legal level that's on European scale, they're now trying to point out, okay, what's the problem going to be? And how are you going to solve this issue? Because the technology is moving much faster than we could ever have imagined. Yeah. And there are new paths being created every day that we don't know of now. So how are we going to also take that into something that that's future ready? That how are you going to state that framework? To have the values that we have and secure those, without exactly saying, okay, you cannot do this or that, because you're definitely going to miss that third part. Yeah. And Germany did that.
The details going to be hard, right?
No, there should be no details. No, exactly. That's the problem. You cannot, and that's law is very detailed at the moment, but you cannot have the details because somebody's moving around that by doing something totally different that we wouldn't have imagined at the moment. So you shouldn't, and that's also what I tried to say there. don't make the law of what is now, but what it's going to be, or what the potential is of that.
There should more
technology.
be like guidelines towards what the end result of the algorithm itself
Yeah.
should be, instead of you can't say this thing in the algorithm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you have to comply with, and that's what they previously said. Okay, if you build a robot, you have to comply with Asimov's laws, which are a robot can hurt any human body,
Yeah.
but that's not how the robot works. That's not how they think.
Yeah.
It's you cannot execute this command, but then somebody would have made that command specifically to do that. So it's very hard to translate such a thing into a technical level.
It's
you cannot
something
say
totally different,
to
actually. Yeah.
you cannot say into to an autonomous car, okay, don't hit a child.
Yeah.
Because first it doesn't know what a child is, so you have to program that in order to be able to recognize that. So you have to have a very large data set of pictures of children, and they say, okay, don't hit this.
Yeah.
But then if something looks more like a tree because he's
Or like a trash can, and you
yeah,
things, I'll
and I think
charge a
okay,
trash
yeah,
can.
I can hit a trash can because there was nowhere in the. So there's definitely it is not going to hit anything on purpose, but it cannot make more complex decisions than that. Or maybe it's going to be able to do that in the future, but at the moment that's not possible, and that's why it's very hard to phrase that in such a way that it's still future-proof.
Yeah.
Or you have to keep updating your laws every year, but that doesn't work, I guess.
Yeah.
And Germany now did that, I think, with AIs and drones. They put a restrictive something on that.
Yeah, it's just like the first steps. I don't know the specifics about it. Just
I talked to the guy who implemented that.
Cool.
But that was a smart guy. But I don't know if this is going to work. They tried to. It was more in the pilot kind of side. Okay, we'll try this and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I think like the governments, they need to build some responsibility for if something happens, that they have something to fall back on, at least in law or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's going to be it's a tough thing. They call it, and there's also a lot of psychological stuff involved as well. They call it the trolley problem. You probably know it, but like, you know the trolley problem. The trolley problem is that you have. It's about a podcast explains it really well. I don't know if you can explain it really well, but it's about a train is riding towards 5 people that are tied down on a railway.
Yeah.
And people have the opportunity to pull a lever, and then a fat man falls on the train rail, and the fat man dies, but he slows down the train so that the 5 people live. Yeah.
Yeah.
So normally, if you ask this question in real life, this rational thinking says, okay, I'm going to pull the lever.
Yeah.
So,
but then you killed somebody.
Yeah, but that's still sort of fine. Okay. So that's most people get a consensus on this one. But then they ask another question to different people, but the same situation. But instead of there being a lever, they say you push the person off the ledge on the railway. And then people start to think, no, I'm not going to push someone, I'm really killing him. So it's a really different sort of approach. So there's a really psychological approach if you're doing something mechanical, or if you're doing it personal and actually pushing him off. And then a lot of people say, I'm not going to push someone off, and 5 people die. But then the emotional overrules the rational at that point. So this sort of thing is also something that's really interesting in how to program AI and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, or leave this full kind of problem out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Maybe something like that is actually the best option, anyways. But it's sidetracked on what
you
we're
also have
talking
this
about.
problem that what if you you have the possibility to you're in a car, or you're in an autonomous car. In the car, you have people in there, and you have people which the car wouldn't have seen on a zebra thing
Crossing road,
on a crossing, but. So you have 2 possibilities. Either you drive into those people, or you're going to drive off the road, hit a wall, and probably everybody in your car dies. What's your car going to do? So Mercedes said, we'll just drive over all the people, because the people who buy a Mercedes are... so you should protect the people. The car should always protect the people inside. So that's a priority.
Number 1 rule, right?
Yeah. No, so that's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah.
You can also say, okay, there are maybe 4 people in your car, and there are 2 people walking on the crossing. So I'm going to hit those 2 people. What if you do if it's the other way around?
Yeah, and people aren't going to buy a car that knows it's going to make a decision that's going to kill you instead of the 4 people on the crossing.
So probably it's also a marketing thing.
It's a marketing thing.
But what I believe, and we had also had this discussion about what are we going to do. But at the moment that your car can't see, can't know if people are going to cross that road, it's just going to slow down. So probably this problem will never ever happen.
Fair enough. It's like a
Yeah.
really hypothetical situation that's maybe 1 into a million situations, right?
Yeah. So no, yeah, but
Even then.
if the autonomous car is going to be made in such a way that it's inherently safe, so what a car can very good do is predict what all the physical things are going to do in the next future, in like a very short time step ahead.
Yeah.
They can't predict what humans are going to do, so you take that as a possibility that okay, they can't do anything, and in any case that we're going to hit anything, I have to make sure that I can stop before that. So if you see people are standing at a crossroad, it will stop, because a long way ahead, if it couldn't see if there are people standing at a crossroad, it should also stop.
Yeah.
Because you can see if there are people there.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's another different problem than how are you going to act as an autonomous car
like
within
you're
a city
avoiding
of
a problem even before it's already there, right?
Yeah. So that's how you should program and actually bypass this issue. But then you end up with, and there's a good analogy that Carlo van der Weijer, maybe you should talk to him too. He's a professor at the university here.
Here at
At the TU.
Okay.
What he made, okay, if I put an autonomous car in Amsterdam, it would probably drive backwards, because everybody's trying to cut you off, and you have to push yourself into the traffic, knowing that it's actually the wrong thing to do. And to have you break a couple of laws every minute, but otherwise they're going to take advantage of that, because the traffic is so rough here that it's not going to work at all. So that's probably another major issue that we have to solve. But what we said, okay, we're going to redistribute cars, so let's just do that at night at low speed, so then we are done with all the issues, and there's nobody in the cars anyway.
Yeah.
So if there's some chance of hitting somebody, just drive the car into
the river, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. Cars
Don't
can be replaced. So
Yeah, exactly.
so that's one way of taking that, and that's also the reason why I think we have a possibility to do a lot of things earlier than the big OEMs can be, because they're focusing at the level 5, driving people around in a vehicle, and we're trying to drive around the cars. We're moving things, and that also means that
would it be that people would be driving the cars themselves, and then once they step out of the car, then it will go autonomous and drive itself back? Yeah. So you're avoiding the whole human problem.
That, and also that you can have a car, you can say, okay, I want mobility now, and that is not, you have to walk to the car, but the car comes to you. So that's both ways. So it's the end part. But also that means that if people are in the car, you have to keep them moving or they'll get annoyed. If we have the possibility, there's nobody in the car, and there's a situation the car doesn't understand.
Yeah.
For example, you're going on a Thursday night, you're driving across the city center, and there are drunk people, and they're trying, let's make fun of this car, let's stand in front of it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a problem if you have people in the car, because the car will stop. Yeah. Obviously, you can't hit anybody. So, and then people get annoyed, and it's a problem. But in our case, the car just stops. They get bored, car drives on.
Yeah.
Or if there's a situation it definitely can't handle, it just stops and waits for somebody to come pick it up.
Yeah,
so
or
you
goes alarm off or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So it calls for manual intervention, but you don't have the issue that it's driving slowly or it's stopping, because there's nobody in there. Nobody's waiting for it. Then the system just, okay, this one's going to be late, let's schedule another car that's going to pick that driver up. Right. So that's one way of tackling that problem, and also that we're going to drive around in the beginning very slowly, at night, little people, so you make it just as easy as possible for yourself to do this. And so the use case that we're having is a lot less difficult than the use case of driving people around on a crowded day on the highway. So that's definitely not what we're going to do. So that's
just a lot more incremental approach instead of trying to
it's
deliver the final product, bang, like it's here. Right?
Yeah, but that's the case if you sell a car, people have expectations. We're not selling it, we're just trying it out. And we're selling it to ourselves, so nobody
and you're selling the service more than the...
Yeah, we're selling the service, but if the car is going to drive around itself, or you have to pick it up, or somebody's driving it and redistributing it, nobody cares. Only we do, because distributing it by people is very expensive. But all our customers will never see this. But it will increase the service, the level of service, because you have more cars around, and it becomes cheaper in the end, because you can have less cars in total and less capital expenses.
Yeah.
So that's pick your problem and try to solve the easy one.
All right. Yeah, it sounds really good. How many cars do you guys have running right now?
At the moment, 6.
Okay.
But we have 25 more in order, which are coming in the beginning of January. I think we just got 5 or something on put on license plate, but the rest is dripping in from Germany. So they will put them down in the beginning of January, and we're having now
in this vicinity.
Yeah, a couple of them are here. If they're not out, they're here in the Huite campus or in the city of in the center of Eindhoven. And the next cars that we're going to place are in Eindhoven, Tilburg, Amsterdam, Den Bosch, and Zwolle.
Okay.
So that's going to be in the first quarter of next year. We're going to expand to multiple hubs, and then also try to give coverage there at specific locations, and then. We try now to expand that to have more sales, more customers, more cars around, to have more hubs that you can also make use of the hub-to-hub driving. Because how it works now is that you pick up a car in a hub, so for example in Eindhoven Center, but then you have to take it back to another hub. And you can bring it here and leave it here. You can, in January, you can bring it to Amsterdam and leave it there. But at the moment that you bring it, for example, to Groningen, there's no hub. You're responsible yourself for bringing it back.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. We want to be able that people are always able to drop off a car, and we worry about the rest. So that's
where the autonomous part comes in as well, of course.
Yeah. So then they have to, if all the cars end up in Groningen and they have to be driven back, or for example, I go to Amsterdam and in the afternoon there's a lot of traffic, so I take the train back, then maybe a lot of cars will end up in Amsterdam, we have to take them back to Eindhoven. Yeah. And that's the autonomous part, but mainly also...
But would you, because they're all electric, right?
Yeah.
So if someone drives to, this is sort of hypothetical, I'm just interested, but if someone drives to Groningen and you would want to, and there's no hub there, and you would want it to drive back autonomously to, say, Amsterdam or whatever, but he drove then, there's only 10% battery at that point, he'd have to hook it up, and then the car would unhook itself, or how would that work?
I had this discussion yesterday with some guy that makes, or the company that makes a lot of the charging connectors, to try to make a connector that's that's only like a press fit, which
or like
you can
magnetic or whatever.
Yeah. So the car actually drives into the hub and then communicates and then turns the charging on. And then when it says turns the charging on, it can drive away. So it's more like it's not the generic put it to the charger, but it's more the it drives itself to the charger. So that also means that if I leave my car in Groningen, the car can drive itself with the last percentage
towards
into
the charging
station, charges there, and overnight, for example, overnight, and in the beginning of the morning, it drives back to where it needs to be.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sounds logical.
Yeah. And it's either that or wireless charging, but I don't believe in wireless charging.
That's not going to happen?
No, it's going to happen. It's definitely going to be. No, also in the next, it's already possible, but not at very high powers. Yeah. And I know of a couple of companies who are working on that. Continental's very, I think they already have an 11 kilowatt wireless charger, so they're very advanced in that technology. But the thing is that we're doing so much effort to make those cars cheaper or more efficient, because in the end, energy is still quite expensive. Yeah. And then if you do a lot of effort to make your car, at least in our case, a couple of percentages more efficient, which ends up in €1,000 or a couple of €1,000 per car over the lifetime of it, why are you then going to charge with a 90% or 95% efficiency? It's just throwing away energy.
Yeah.
So in that case, it's way too expensive, and wireless chargers are expensive too. So in that case, for us, it's not a business case, but it's
too far away still, right? Yeah. Well,
no,
also,
it's more.
It could be like a scenario where you have the roads that are actually it's charging while it's riding as well, right?
But
infrastructure-wise,
that's very, very hard to do. Yeah. And also, I think it's going to be there, but it's going to be there as a gimmick. it's a nice option, and I know
Like
Mercedes
wireless
is
charging on
working
your
that,
phone. Yeah.
Porsche is working on that, and a couple of other more the high-end car companies are working on wireless chargers for their electric vehicles.
Yeah.
But it's more the additional comfort or the additional nice gadget feeling that you have a wireless charger. The same is for phones. Nobody
Yeah.
really needs a wireless charger in their
Exactly.
phones, but it's cool to have.
Yeah.
And my previous phone had that, and I could put it to a wireless charger, but I almost never did that. And if I really needed to charge, then I put it on a cable because the charge is faster.
Yeah. I know.
And the same holds for electric cars. It's cool to have, but it's not a necessity. And in our case, it's too expensive, and you lose energy, and it's
Just a waste,
It's for us. It's not going to be for the higher end market. Probably Tesla will make itself a wireless charger in one time. Some other company, but in the higher end market, it's definitely going to be an awesome feature that you have to pay a lot too much for.
Yeah.
But then if you want it, then you want it. Yeah. That's the range of people that are going to sell it to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, cool. Thanks. I think we're done.
Okay, nice. I'd love to read your research.